What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, live for another day of NFL free agency, another eventful NFL day of free agency. Davante Adams is a Raider. The autumn wind is a Pirate, and so is Davante Adams for 2022 and beyond. We had a blockbuster trade, and the crazy part is that isn't even all of it. We have so much more to discuss on this show, but of course that is the headliner. Davante Adams is a Las Vegas Raider, and the AFC West just continues to be more stacked by the day. We thought we saw it all with Russell Wilson going to the Broncos. We thought we saw it all with Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson going to the Chargers. And then Josh McDaniels rose up and he said, "No, sir, we're going to add Chandler Jones," and then a day later trade for Davante Adams for a first and a second round pick this season in this year's NFL draft. What a day of news. And we still have the Deshaun Watson trade that could eventually go down this weekend. I am pumped. As an honorary Raiders fan in moments, I am excited for the Raiders, for Raider Nation, for the silver and black. And I am very excited to watch the AFC West in hopefully every primetime game this season. Derek Carr, Davante Adams, Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller, with Josh McDaniels calling the plays and scheming up the offense. It's going to be very exciting for the Raiders. So that's where I want to begin. Davante Adams, if you haven't noticed, is being traded to the Raiders. Per Adam Schefter, he is being reunited with Derek Carr, who, if you guys don't know for some reason, these two played with each other in college for, I believe, 2 years. So the Raiders, on top of trading a first and second in this year's draft, they are giving Adams the contract that he wants. That contract is a 5-year contract per sources. Adams gets a new contract worth $141 million over 5 years, sources say. He gets an average of $28 million, which would make him the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. Davante Adams has been widely regarded as the best wide receiver in the NFL over the past, I would say, 3 seasons. And he deserves to be paid. He deserves to be paid like this. And as we've seen in recent seasons, wide receiver might be the second most valuable position in the NFL today. So, as you could see by the contracts, he's right along with guys like TJ Watt on the defensive side of the football for the highest paid players in the NFL that are non-quarterbacks. If you guys haven't already, make sure that you do Gronk spike the like button. Also, let me know what you think of the trade, Davante Adams to the Raiders, and Gronk spike the notification bell to be notified when I go live next and when my latest upload is. All right. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know how you're feeling. What's going on? Wave God, what's going on? John Doe. Zelda's in the chat. Appreciate the dislike from whoever that was. Not sure why. T Perfect, $5. Thank you, man. Says, Adams was sick of Rodgers choking in the playoffs every year. Now, this is interesting. So there have been details that have come out, and I don't know how reliable or true they are. But there have been reports of, there have been reports of Davante Adams picking the Raiders over the Packers. And essentially, you're right, picking Carr over Aaron Rodgers when you look at it. So I'm going to try to find the exact tweet here, but you're not wrong, okay? So Aaron Rodgers, by the way, was aware of the trade. He was aware it was going to happen. So there should be no friction between the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. He was aware that this trade was going to take place, according to all reports. Derek Carr tweeted, "Welcome home, Tay Adams." Tay, of course, being Davante Adams. But yeah, there was a report. I can't seem to find it here now. There's been so many tweets about Davante Adams. But there was a report. Okay, here. I believe this is it. Rob Domofsky, who is a ESPN Packers reporter who's been covering the Packers since 1997. He says that the Packers were willing to pay Adams equally to what the Raiders are with this new deal, but that Adams preferred to play elsewhere. And then he says Aaron Rodgers was aware of the developments with Adams as they unfolded in recent days. Ross Tucker actually replied to this. Ross Tucker says, "So guys take less to play with Brady, but won't even play with Rodgers for the same money." So, if you were wondering, and I know there's been plenty of jokes out there about Aaron Rodgers making whatever he's making, something ridiculous of $50 million, and probably it was going to be pretty difficult for a team like Green Bay to afford a $50 million quarterback and a $28 million wide receiver. That certainly is difficult to do. Two players making $78 million in a season is quite a lot. But obviously the Packers were willing to do it. Something happened between Green Bay and Adams. I'm not sure if anything happened between Adams and Rodgers. I feel like that relationship was fine as far as I know. But something was severed there with Adams and the Green Bay Packers organization, and Adams was not wanting to play despite them bringing back Aaron Rodgers. And you wonder, would Aaron Rodgers have come back to the Packers if he knew that this was going to take place? Because like I said, over the last couple of days, Aaron Rodgers was notified that Adams could be traded to the Raiders. But when he actually decided to come back to Green Bay, he was not aware of that, as far as my understanding and as far as the reports come. So that is interesting. Probably a lot of drama behind the scenes between Rodgers, the Packers, and Adams that we have yet to hear about and know about. But the report is that Adams was not playing for the Packers. And that's weird because all that we heard, including what I believed, was that there was no way that Aaron Rodgers would be playing with the Packers this year and Davante Adams wouldn't be playing for the Packers this year if Rodgers returned. I figured the Raiders would be the greatest destination, the best destination, the top destination if Rodgers had left the team. But I did not figure that if Rodgers returned, Adams would be on his way out. So that's crazy. That's crazy to me. And that's the drama behind the scenes that makes the NFL right now so compelling. As I just saw Adam Schefter, I believe it was, tweet, the NFL is the real March Madness. We've had such an incredible free agency period. I feel like I say this every day, but I have really enjoyed free agency. Just all the moves and all the shocking developments that have taken place throughout the first few days of NFL free agency and the NFL offseason. Steve O asks, did Green Bay get 2 first-round picks for Adams? No. They got a first-round pick and a second-round pick in this year's NFL draft, 2022 NFL draft. Did not get 2 firsts. I assume that is because the Raiders still had to pay Adams his new contract. So he wasn't already under contract, so the Raiders had to pay his new contract. Davante Adams, though, is arguably the best receiver in the NFL. He's in that conversation for sure, and he's a difference maker. Let's just check. I'm going to pull up all of his stats and stuff, but You could argue he's the best receiver in the NFL. Some would argue Cooper Kupp. Some would argue maybe Tyreek Hill. Some would argue possibly Justin Jefferson. But I think that's probably the main group. He is 29 years old now. Turned 29 in December, so he'll be 30 in next December. He really didn't develop or truly break out until about 2016. 24 years old, about 3 years into his career with the Packers, when he had 75 catches for 997 yards and 12 touchdowns. In 2017, he hit his first Pro Bowl, and then since 2017, he is a 5-time Pro Bowler and a 2-time All-Pro. He has led the NFL in yards per game in 2020 and touchdowns in 2020. He has had 3 seasons of 110 plus receptions in a season. He has 5 seasons with at least 10 touchdowns. And he has 3 1,000-yard seasons and 2 All-Pros. Consecutive All-Pros. Last year and this year. So, he's really, really good. This past year was maybe his best season of his career. I think probably last year was, but when you look at it, 1,553 yards, 11 touchdowns. He played 16 games. That's a career high in yards and 4th for touchdowns in his seasons. So, and he averaged 1 yard less than he did a year ago. So, yeah, like right now he's at his peak. He's in his prime. So even though he's 29, entering 30, he's at his peak, he's at his prime, and he will be probably until about 33, I would say. That's when you usually typically see receivers drop a little bit. Now, in terms of the football player, Davante Adams, many of you probably already know what he's like as he is a premier player in the NFL. But what is he as a football player? He is arguably the best route runner in the NFL. I would say he's the best at getting off the line of scrimmage in terms of his release. Getting off the line of scrimmage is, I would say, second to none, absolutely the best. And really, really good at in the air, finding and tracking a football. And Aaron Rodgers and him have had such a great rapport and chemistry. The one question about Adams is going to be, will he be able to replicate his chemistry that he had with Rodgers with Carr? You would figure yes, even though Carr isn't as good as Rodgers. They are somewhat similar players, and Carr and him do have a relationship dating back to college where they played multiple years together. So there should be some familiarity there between the two of them as players. I would say that so much of his success, though, did come with Rodgers throwing him one-on-one balls, fade balls, back shoulders, just trusting where he would be on the field to be able to make the grab. But it's not like Adams can't just separate, beat a guy, and force a double team regularly. So he's going to be somebody on the Raiders offense now that forces a double team from the opposing defense, forces respect to be given to him, double teams and coverage shifted towards him, and that's going to open up the rest of the Raiders offense. It's going to open up Hunter Renfrow underneath. It's going to open up Darren Waller. It's going to open up Bryan Edwards. It's going to open up the running game. And now with Josh McDaniels taking hold of this offense, I think you're going to see a lot of spread from this offense. I think you're going to see a lot of empty from this offense. I think you're going to see, Renfrow running that Edelman-Welker route tree. I think you're going to see Adams running the intermediate and vertical route tree for the most part. Not that he can't run the underneath route tree as well. You'll see him doing a little bit of everything, but he'll be primarily the X in this offense. And then you've got Bryan Edwards, who's a big-bodied guy who can come through as a red zone presence and things of that nature, and is probably only getting better himself as a younger receiver. Third-round pick a couple years ago, and has slightly gotten better over the last couple of years. And then you've got Darren Waller, who's a move tight end who can do a little bit of everything. You know, he can line up outside and run vertical routes. He can run from the slot and make plays. He's really good just on the line of scrimmage. He can block a little bit, and he's dangerous after the catch. So this is a really, really, really enticing, exciting offense that we are going to be able to watch for 2022. I think the Raiders are going to be one of my favorite watches in the NFL for how Adams and for how McDaniels dictates matchups to opposing offenses, and how Carr takes advantage of this weapon group and how he attacks these defenses. But I think McDaniels is going to, now with Adams there, it's somebody that can give you more information as a quarterback, not just as a great player, but where you align him and where you move him is going to be able to, for McDaniels' offense, who loves to use motion and things and indicators for his quarterback, it's going to allow Carr a lot of pre-snap ability to see things, read things, and attack things. So I love this move for the Raiders. I think they get an upper echelon wide receiver. I personally believe that you need a number one weapon to win the Super Bowl or to do damage in this league nowadays. You can't get away with a bunch of number twos or a bunch of number threes. You need a stud. And now the Raiders have not just one, but I would say two, with Darren Waller and now Davante Adams. And then you've got on top of that Hunter Renfrow, who I was just talking to the guys in the Discord the other day, and I was like, Hunter Renfrow might be the best short area wide receiver in the NFL. So you have arguably the best move tight end in the NFL, arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL, and arguably the best short area wide receiver in the NFL, which I think is just going to be absolutely phenomenal to watch, right? And then you've got Josh Jacobs running the football with a new fullback, Jakob Johnson, who they picked up. So they can go from spread, and they could go to underneath center, and they can do a lot of different things in this offense. And this is a true McDaniels work of art coming in 2022. I'm excited for that. Look at Lenny. He's excited. Lenny, let me know how you're feeling, man. Let me know how you're doing. It looks like you're pretty excited. He says, Waller is our Gronk, Adams is our Moss, Renfrow is our Welker, Carr is our Brady, and Jacobs is a beast. And Ultra says, I don't know about all that. And Ultra says, Adams is the best receiver McDaniels has worked with since Randy Moss. Joe says, Bucks, Bills, Super Bowl, so it doesn't matter. And Nicholas says, Raiders are a Gilmore signing away from being in that tier. I think the Chiefs missed the playoffs and finish last in the division. That is a bold take. He also thinks it's Chargers versus Bucks Super Bowl. So there's a lot of implications for this. Not only does this move really help the Raiders, but you got to think about it from a Packer perspective and then from a league perspective. So let's get to the Packers perspective. Again, there must be something behind the scenes. The report is that Adams wanted out. He did not want to play with the Packers, even though they brought back Aaron Rodgers, which is crazy to me. And from the Packers' perspective now you have multiple first-round picks, multiple second-round picks. So you should be able to build something from this. And if I was Green Bay, I would utilize both your first-round picks or potentially one first and one second to building a receiving core now for Aaron Rodgers. I would really look heavily at the draft to try to put some receivers and some weapons around Aaron Rodgers, because that is the best way to go, in my opinion. If you're going to trade Davante Adams, well, let's try to get two receivers in our top 4 picks this year with a pretty good receiver class, and let's go cheap at the wide receiver position, but let's try to acquire some talent at the wide receiver position. You could also use your cap space for potentially a veteran signing. There's still guys out there, like Will Fuller, I believe, is still out there. Guys like Jamison Crowder, who I predicted would be a good fit for the Packers, or a Julio Jones. Bringing in one of those guys would be nice, but I think you have to look towards the draft to build some talent at the wide receiver position. Tight end is going to be difficult. I don't know. I don't think they re-signed Robert Tonyan. I could be wrong about that. I haven't heard much on the front there. But the offensive line is fairly solid. There's not much that really needs to be done there. You could look towards improving the interior of the line and possibly right tackle. But the offensive line is always good in Green Bay, and the running back situation is great. And the defense, I think, is actually pretty underrated for the most part. They didn't lose anybody. They retained Devondre Campbell. It looks like Douglas is going to be back as one of their corners. So Alexander's going to be back this season, right? They did lose Darius Smith, but he didn't really play last year. So Preston Smith's on a cheaper deal. Whitney Merciless is there on a cheaper deal. He played good for them. I would look to improve the interior defensive line. I'd look to improve potentially, nickel maybe. But I think the Packers are still going to be good. I just don't know what the team is going to look like offensively because Adams was so important for them. I mean, I understand that they won a lot of games without Adams. The stat is something like 7-0. I'd like to see which teams they played when Adams didn't play and actually assess it that way because I don't know, they beat the Cardinals. That's probably the best team they've ever beat without Davante Adams. But so you look at the Packers, he was just such a mismatch weapon. Every time Rodgers needed to play, he went to Adams. Every single time. And maybe the Packers are sitting there saying, you were too invested in getting the ball to Davante Adams. Maybe getting rid of Davante Adams is going to make you better. But I don't really see that. I don't think Rodgers is that type of guy where getting rid of that number one target and surrounding him with a bunch of guys at the same level is going to make them better. Like, I don't really get that. Like, maybe that was the case for a guy like Deshaun Watson when he had DeAndre Hopkins. He consistently forced the ball to DeAndre Hopkins, but he was a young quarterback at that time, right? The older quarterbacks want those guys that they can trust, the guys with the rapport, the guys with the understanding. That's why Rodgers wanted Randall Cobb on his team, even though Randall Cobb, runs basically slower than Davante Adams does backwards, so like that's why they brought in Randall Cobb. But like I said, I would look towards the draft to improving that wide receiver position and hopefully surrounding Rodgers and this team with a good defense this year, maybe signing a couple guys on defense, but they've got enough room now where they can manipulate and do what they like. But my problem with the Packers, they just don't make enough aggressive moves. And they've really wasted Aaron Rodgers over these last couple of years, in my opinion. Trust me, Rodgers has done no favors, but he has definitely not played a part in getting them over the top, in my opinion. Like last year, I thought he was dreadful in that game versus the 49ers. But if they would have just... I wouldn't have these excuses if they just would have gone out and gotten a number 2 receiver these years. If they just would have gotten a guy that can help Adams out, you know what I mean? And I think that was a big problem last playoffs where they were too Davante Adams reliant. The 49ers, okay, Adams had a great first drive, and then immediately they just started double teaming him on every play and asking Rodgers to go elsewhere with the football, and there was nowhere else to really go with the football, and Rodgers wasn't willing to go anywhere else with the football, which just speaks to the talent and the trust of Rodgers with these other players. So there's a lot to work on in Green Bay, and I look at it as this. You take the Packers from this move, until we see these players from the draft that they get, you take the Packers right out of the contender conversation. Just strip them right out of the contender conversation. They no longer belong there, even in an NFC that is weak, because already I look at a team like Tampa Bay, having played them 2 years ago and really just seemingly having their number. The Rams won the Super Bowl last year. They just added Allen Robinson today. And it's not a very good NFC, but like, I don't know. Like, are the Packers, like, are they still on that level? They'll probably make the playoffs. Their division is basically the CFL at this point. They'll probably make the playoffs, but are they going to be able to get out of that first week, the wild card week? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they hit a bad matchup and they end up losing. So, yeah, the Packers are just very confusing to me. They've been confusing for years in free agency. I don't understand it. If I was a GM for that team, I'd be doing everything I could. I don't care. Like, look at what the Saints are doing. Look at what the Rams are doing. Look at what the Bucks are doing. These teams that understand that they can win right now, and even to a certain degree, the Bills have become this way with Von Miller's contract. They're saying F the future. Let's do it. Like, let's try to win. And the Packers have never actually tried to intentionally go for it. Go for it, you know? So that's confusing. That's confusing to me. If you were going to get rid of Adams, I'm not sure why you wanted to bring back Aaron Rodgers. Did you so desperately not want Jordan Love to play because he would embarrass you? Somebody explain this to me. I'm not even a Packers fan, and I'm sitting here mad and frustrated because if I'm a Packers fan, I am confused. I'm like thinking before free agency, this was the year. Like, this is the year for us to try to go for it. Like, let's get some receivers. Let's get some defensive guys. Let's get the veterans. Instead, we're going to trade our second best player and the best receiver in the NFL. What sense does that make? I can sit here and hate on Rodgers and say all this stuff, but at the end of the day, like, the Packers just don't care. They just don't care about winning at all. They don't care. They're not, you know how there's like 6 teams that want to win? The Packers aren't one of them. They don't care. When's the last time the Packers actually cared about winning? When's the last time the Packers actually pulled a Rams and was like, F it, we're going to trade for Von Miller and we're going to sign OBJ? Bro, this team last year didn't even call OBJ. Odell Beckham was sitting there saying, hey, I'd like to play with the Packers. Literally spelling it out for you. And you didn't even give him a call. What? What? Like, just an embarrassment. An embarrassment. An embarrassment are the Green Bay Packers. Embarrassing. It is embarrassing to me. I get it. It's a fine trade, whatever. But, like, it doesn't matter. It's like, why would you... I just don't understand why you would trade Davante Adams and bring back Aaron Rodgers. I don't get it. I don't get it. Nicholas Gill says the Panthers are out on Deshaun Watson. Thank you for that update. I think it's pretty much down to Atlanta and New Orleans, as we know, and I think as we've known for a while. Coach says Julio to the Pack. Okay, congratulations. If that happens, how long does Julio last until he pulls his hamstring? 2 weeks? 3 weeks? His hamstring's more liable to pull than mine. I mean, come on. Julio, at this point, he is a luxury. Like, if the Bucks got Julio, I'd be like, okay, that's a good move. That's a good move. Because he's your third receiver. And you still got Russell Gage. But if the Packers have Julio and they're expecting him to be the number 1, I'm sorry. He's a Hall of Famer, but he's a little bit old. Do you think the Jets can get second place this year? Who knows? I don't love their coaches. I think you know that. I don't love their coaching staff. I think they have some talent, though. Lance says, can the Packers take Marquise Brown off of us? What's wrong with Marquise Brown? I thought he had a good year last year. What's going on with that, Lance? Okay, guys, so that's my thoughts on Davante Adams. Phenomenal pickup for the Raiders. McDaniels gets his guy, and I will be rooting for the Raiders to win this year. It's going to be exciting. I just don't understand the Packers. They make no damn sense. They don't care about winning, and it doesn't feel like Aaron Rodgers does either, so whatever. I guess they're meant for each other. If you guys haven't already, make sure that you do Gronk spike the like button, and let's move on to the next topic. So let's quickly discuss the Deshaun Watson rumors. I'm probably even going to make another video about this, but just quickly where they're at right now. So it was reported earlier in the day, not confirmed, but reported that Deshaun Watson was likely to land with the Atlanta Falcons. Don't know how confident I can be in saying that because there haven't been many sources that have actually doubled down on that. There's just been one that reported it. So, not sure how confident I can be with that. But it looks like Atlanta is leading the race for Deshaun Watson. I will definitely jump on that whenever it goes down. Second in line is the New Orleans Saints. The Saints have a chance still, from my understanding. It's one of those two. He's headed to the NFC South. He's ruled out the Cleveland Browns. He just ruled out the Carolina Panthers. So, those are the two teams that Watson is deciding between. The Saints and the Falcons. We'll see where he goes. Now, if he goes to the Falcons, that would mean Matt Ryan is out of a job. And my guy, Ultra, believes that Matt Ryan is on his way out regardless of whether or not they get Deshaun Watson, which would open up the possibility of some trade destinations for Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan could go to a few places. Two teams that really stand out to me. The top trade destinations for Matt Ryan. Number one, the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts, I've loved the fit since the beginning. I've actually been clamoring for this for multiple years. I love the fit within Frank Reich's offense and his quick passing attack. Very good offensive line up front that can protect him, especially on the interior. And you have a nice running game partnered with a nice play action and a pretty quality defense. That would be like upgrading from Phillip Rivers a couple years ago in what you would get with Matt Ryan. A veteran upgrade from Carson Wentz. It would make sense for the Colts to trade Carson Wentz and then acquire Matt Ryan. That would be logical. That would be progress, right? Second destination would be the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns have granted Baker Mayfield's opportunity to go out there and get traded. So Baker's on his way out regardless of what happens, right? We already know this. Deshaun Watson is not going to the Cleveland Browns. So that means that they're out of luck there. And Baker Mayfield is on his way out regardless. So Baker could end up somewhere else. We got to talk about him as well. But Matt Ryan could go to Cleveland. I like the fit. Again, good offensive line. You've got Amari Cooper as your number one target. You've got a strong running game. They could maybe bring in another wide receiver. They've got a pretty good defense. They've been building to win, right? And that's the thing with Cleveland. If you're going to move on from Baker, you're trying to upgrade. Baker to Matt Ryan, that's an upgrade. Matt Ryan's not what he used to be, but he's an upgrade. And Matt Ryan is a win-now quarterback. You're signaling to the rest of the NFL and to me that you're trying to win right now if Cleveland acquires Matt Ryan. And he would fit there with Stefanski, I believe. It'd be similar to what the offense looked like with Matt Ryan in Atlanta under Kyle Shanahan. Now that gives me my third destination for Matt Ryan. The 49ers. Now the 49ers, of course, have Kyle Shanahan, and Shanahan and Matt Ryan worked together in 2016 when Atlanta went to the Super Bowl and nearly beat the Patriots. before 28-3 and Tom Brady happened. And Matt Ryan won the MVP that season in that offense. Now, Matt Ryan, to me, is at this point much better than Trey Lance. There have been reports that Trey Lance is not ready to play. And with the NFC landscape so weak right now, especially with Adams leaving Green Bay, the 49ers might look at the landscape and say, if we had Matt Ryan, we might be the true contender and the favorite to win this conference after getting to the NFC Championship last year with Jimmy Garoppolo. And I would say that Matt Ryan is a better version than Jimmy Garoppolo right now. Plus, Matt Ryan has been able to stay healthy. Matt Ryan would know the offense. There would be no real learning curve there, so that would be quick and easy. So you wouldn't have to catch somebody up like you would maybe with Tom Brady or that sort of thing that we were talking about before. So all that stuff would make sense, and the 49ers would instantly become maybe the favorite of the NFC, or they'd be right there with Tampa. So the 49ers are the third destination, and those are the top destinations that I see for Matt Ryan, because you have to pick teams that are going to be willing to take Matt for 1 or 2 years for the rest of his career, potentially, or 1 year to compete, and then go from there. Because a team that's sort of in rebuild mode, or a team that's not quite sold that they can contend, is not going to make the move for Matt Ryan, because it doesn't make sense, because he's too old. There's no real future with him. That's why a team like San Francisco makes a lot of sense, because Trey Lance could sit 1 more year and develop while Matt Ryan takes the lead for 1 year. That's why the Browns make sense, because they've been trying to build a Super Bowl team for the last 2 years, and Baker hasn't been their answer. And the Colts, the same thing. Plus, the Colts have a ton of cap space. So those are the destinations for Matt Ryan. And then you've got Baker Mayfield. We talked about Baker Mayfield. I did trade destinations for Baker Mayfield. If you haven't checked that video out, check it out. Now, the latest report is that Seattle was interested in trading for him. I had somebody laugh at me when I said that Seattle could be the destination. Seattle could be the destination. Pete Carroll likes Baker Mayfield, and the Seahawks would be totally cool with handing the ball off 35 times with Baker Mayfield as their quarterback. So it makes perfect sense. Plus, Baker Mayfield, I heard, is pretty good at handing the ball off from his days in Cleveland. So there is that. What else do we got in terms of quarterbacks? I believe that's it. I could be missing stuff. Let me just check my notes here. The Browns, though, in terms of their quarterback future, is something else that we should discuss. So the Cleveland Browns have a couple of options in terms of their future quarterback. Some options for the Browns. Some options for the Browns for their future of their quarterback position. 49ers quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo would be the first one. It was reported that a target of the Browns would be Jimmy Garoppolo. If they move Baker Mayfield, which looks like they're going to, he wants to be traded. They granted his trade request. So Baker Mayfield on the move, maybe to Seattle, maybe somewhere else, maybe to the Colts. But regardless, the Browns could replace him with Jimmy Garoppolo. There was actually a rumor that the Browns want a more mature quarterback at the position. Okay, it's a weird way to put it. But what is Garoppolo? Well, he's a winner. He's won a ton in the NFL. He's been to a Super Bowl. He's been to the NFC Championship game. Very good win percentage with the 49ers. Accurate underneath intermediate passer over the middle of the field. Has success in a play-action, run-oriented offense, which Cleveland is very similar. The base fundamentals of Stefanski and Shanahan are pretty crossover similar as well. And then on top of that, Garoppolo is very well respected in his locker room, so much so that the 49ers might even consider bringing him back for another season because the players absolutely love and gravitate towards Jimmy Garoppolo. So it'd definitely be an upgrade in the locker room. It'd be an upgrade in terms of leadership, and it'd be an upgrade in terms of a guy that knows how to win. Maybe he's not more talented than Baker, but he makes less stupid decisions than Baker, and that's for sure. So Jimmy Garoppolo to the Browns would be the number one. Number two, as I discussed, Matt Ryan's destinations. Matt Ryan to the Browns makes a lot of sense. As I put it already, Matt Ryan operating in that play action, run game oriented, won a MVP in 2016. He's more mature. He's a veteran. He's been there. He's won. He's arguably a Hall of Famer. So if you're looking for a more mature option, as the Browns might be, than Baker Mayfield, and one that is more mature on and off the field in terms of his decision-making process, his ability to read a defense, his ability to lead, Matt Ryan is that guy. Not what he used to be, but probably a better quarterback than Baker, so it would make the Baker trade reasonable. And then the third and final option for Cleveland would be a rookie quarterback. They have enough ammunition to trade up in the draft and go cheap at the position, potentially starting over at quarterback, getting rid of Baker on an $18 million deal, send him to the Colts or wherever, Seattle, get rid of that contract. It doesn't hurt the team whatsoever. And then you start fresh and get $18 million to spend on wide receiver or the rest of your roster. That is what the Browns could do with a rookie quarterback. So that would also make sense from their front office perspective, a front office that loves to play money ball. So those are the three potential quarterback options for the Cleveland Browns. And according to the value for Baker, speaking on value assessment, this was the report. Speaking on value assessment, perhaps a second rounder or a conditional third rounder that turns into a second for Baker Mayfield per league source. Now, I believe that was from Josina Anderson that reported that. But yeah, basically a second rounder would probably get you Baker Mayfield, or a third rounder that could turn into a second rounder is essentially the same thing. So that's the value for Baker Mayfield. So I actually think that's pretty good. And I've talked about this before, but if I was a team like the Colts, I wouldn't hate taking a chance for a year on Baker Mayfield. And this is why. If I was Seattle, I wouldn't do it. If I was the Colts, I would. This is why. $18 million, one season, 1 year. Okay, what does that mean? Well, you have him for 2022. That's it. So you've got a quarterback and answer, a top 32 option, a guy that's just as good as Wentz, but different. And it's $18 million. It's less expensive than Carson Wentz. And you get to see if he works in your offense for your team. If it doesn't work, okay, you move on. He's a free agent. Cool. Like, you give up a third round pick, you give up a second round pick. It'd probably be more so like a third with conditions. So you upgrade your draft picks with the Carson Wentz trade, and then you still get a guy like Baker who's about the same level as Carson Wentz. So to me, that would make a lot of sense for the Colts. And they'd still have a lot of money to play with for the rest of free agency or to make trades out there to upgrade the rest of their team. So that makes a lot of sense for a team like the Colts to go after Baker Mayfield. So you could go after, if you're the Colts, you could go after Matt Ryan. You could go after Baker Mayfield. It would make the most sense for me if the Colts got Baker Mayfield, if Atlanta got Deshaun Watson, and if the Browns got Matt Ryan, and then the Saints would end up with Jameis Winston. But I do feel like Jameis Winston is that fourth guy we're not talking about. Jameis Winston is that domino of he's going to be the leftover guy. Because he's a free agent, he's also in that, I believe, like that starting capable area of the same class as Carson Wentz and Baker Mayfield, where I would be like, yeah, Jameis is in that class, I would say. And you could go out there and sign him for $15 to $20 million this year to be your starting quarterback, and it would make sense. You got some upside with Jameis Winston, that why not take a chance on him? So that, and Gardner Minshew would be the next guy in that line. There's been a little bit of buzz about him, but recently not so much. So that's pretty much the way that the quarterback position is trending right now in terms of all those guys potentially lining up. And then Watson's the first to fall. And then down the line we go. So we'll see how that develops. There's a lot going on at quarterback between the lines. Not necessarily that's happened, but between the lines. All right, in terms of the free agency signings today, let's go through the important ones. I'll just quickly scan through some of the quick, easy ones. The Bears are giving former Chiefs wide receiver Byron Pringle a 1-year, $6 million deal. Pringle has an association with the general manager of the Chiefs. Obviously, he likes him coming from Ryan Poles, coming from the Chiefs. So Byron Pringle goes there as a depth wide receiver for that offense and for Justin Fields. Again, 1-year, $6 million deal, includes 4 guaranteed. He'll probably be their third, fourth receiver. Former Saints tight end Garrett Griffin signing with the Lions. Per source, Griffin played for Dan Campbell when Campbell coached tight ends for the Saints. Griffin is currently taking care of his yearly Air Force commitment in Colorado Springs. So good for him, by the way. But Garrett Griffin, depth tight end option for the Lions. Really nothing more, but at least you got familiarity with the coach, and Campbell probably likes the person quite a bit there. Kentavious Street signs with the Saints. Former 49er, depth defensive line option. I do believe the Saints could have used it a little bit of a boost. He's got a little bit of hybrid athlete ability to play on the edge or in the interior. So I think that's a solid depth signing, a guy that can compete in camp. And before we get to the next one, Jake Hedge with the $9.99. Thank you so much, Jake. He puts in the chat, sending love and support, bro. Thank you, Jake. You're the man. Appreciate you. And thank you guys so much for the super chats. All right. Any other quick ones I got to discuss here? The other ones are actually pretty, decent. Okay, the Niners announced that they signed Oren Burks, depth linebacker of the Packers, to a 2-year contract. Played his most snaps this past season. Is an off-ball linebacker, but also has a little bit of versatility, I would say, to play a little bit of outside linebacker. So he's just going to be a depth option for them. But seemingly they've added, all their linebackers back. And I would say that Burks has a little bit of EpiCam ability in that way where he has some versatility, but I think he's more so an off-ball linebacker. Trent Sherfield, formerly of the 49ers, signed with the Dolphins on a 1-year contract, a reunion with Mike McDaniel and Wes Welker. They seem to like him a lot on that coaching staff for whatever reason. He was the 4th receiver for the Niners, so he'll likely play a special teams role and a depth role for that offense, and a receiver that's familiar with that offense. So that could be key just for teaching other guys and other receivers like Jalen Waddle certain things about that offense and certain details. Now let's go to the bigger signings of the day. Let's kick it off with my crappy New England Patriots, who signed running back Ty Montgomery to a 2-year deal worth up to $4 million. I would have been ecstatic about this move probably 4 years ago or whatever. But I actually don't hate this move for the Patriots. I think it's actually a quality move, and this is why. They let go of Brandon Bolden. He went to the Raiders, and Brandon Bolden was kind of that versatile special teams, running back, pass-catching running back, 4th option. So Ty Montgomery is essentially a depth running back wide receiver option where he's played wide receiver, he's played running back, and he gives you an option if James White gets hurt again, that Ty Montgomery could come in there and play a role as a running back, receiving running back. And then on top of that, he could be a returner. So Montgomery offers a lot of 4-down potential and a guy that could just mix in to that running back group as a veteran and also add some big-time versatility to all the position groups. So he's a very Patriot-like signing, and I like that one. It's not a crazy over-the-top move, but it's nice for depth. Linebacker Jalen Reeves-Maybin is signing with the Texans, 2-year deal worth $7.5 million and $5 million fully guaranteed, upside to $9 million. Reeves-Maybin was actually pretty darn good with the Lions last year. He's 27 years old, recorded career highs in tackles, 82, and 4 tackles for loss for the Lions last season. He's a pretty good athlete, so he'll fit into that cover 2 defense which the Lions, primarily played a lot of zone coverage a year ago. So it's a pretty seamless fit there. And the Texans just seemingly continue to attack this mid-level market of free agents, where they continue to pay these guys 1 to 2 year contracts worth a little sprinkle of money here and there, and to fill out their roster. I do believe that Reeves-Maybin could be a potential starter for them at the linebacker position. So that's not a bad move. He's 27, still has some potential, and just had his best year of his career. So not bad. The Atlanta Falcons signed Casey Hayward to a 2-year contract worth $11 million. So a key veteran who was one of the best corners in the NFL last year, very, very quietly. And Casey Hayward, I would say for years, has been one of the smartest corners in the NFL and one of the best zone coverage corners in the NFL as well. Casey Hayward primarily has played in that Gus Bradley cover 3 scheme. This is going to be a departure of that, with Casey Hayward going to more so of a Dean Pease scheme here in Atlanta. But Atlanta now has a fairly good secondary. They got a couple young safeties that they do like. I like AJ Terrell quite a bit. And now you add Casey Hayward to the perimeter on the opposite side, and you've got 2 quality starting cornerbacks. Like, I would say 2 top 20 cornerbacks in the NFL. They still kind of got to figure out whatever the nickel position is going to be. But I think Atlanta working a little bit on that secondary is the way that Dean Pease likes to truly utilize his defense from back to front. So that makes a lot of sense for Atlanta. And Casey Hayward has been consistently a very good football player that I feel like has been a little bit undervalued by the NFL for seasons now. So good move for them. Then after that, we've got the Washington Commanders, who signed Andrew Norwell, the guard formerly of the Jags and the Panthers. I was a little bit surprised to see Norwell go to Washington until I remembered that, of course, he was a part of Ron Rivera's Panthers back in the day. So it helps fill the void left by Brandon Scherf. And basically, we see Brandon Scherf and Andrew Norwell swap guards. And I think you could see Andrew Norwell play better in Washington. I've always been a fan of his game, primarily a pass blocker as opposed to a run blocker. But he's been one of the better, more consistent pass blocking guards in the NFL over the past few seasons. And to get him cheaper here is definitely a deal, as he was signed to a huge contract back in 2017 as one of the primary best guards in the NFL. So this could have some upside and potentially a little bit of a steal for Washington, but certainly adds that much needed piece on the interior offensive line for the Washington Commanders. And then we've got the Jets, as my guy Jeremy wants to know. The Jets added pass rusher Jacob Martin to a 3-year, $13.5 million extension. With more available in incentives, he gets $6 million guaranteed. I've always liked Jacob Martin. He's a guy that not a lot of people probably know because he's been a part of the Texans for the last few years. But he's always stood out to me as a speed rusher off the edge. He has a very nice spin move and ability to get and turn the corner to get to the quarterback. I think he's a very nice 3rd or 4th edge player that can add to the rotation. And that's exactly what the Jets need, adding some depth behind John Franklin Myers and Carl Lawson. Martin can come right in off the bench onto 3rd downs and passing downs, move John Franklin Myers in the inside, take Shelton Rankins from the middle. So now you've got a front 4 of Quinnen Williams, John Franklin Myers, Carl Lawson, and Jacob Martin on those passing situations. And I like that quite a bit. That's that key finesse speed rusher that scheme really thrives with. And I wouldn't be surprised if Martin had like 8 sacks this year for this team. I've always been impressed by his game in a limited role. Next signing, Hayden Hurst signed a 1-year contract for the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati's been looking to get a tight end for quite some time, and this is just a move. I don't love Hayden Hurst by any means, but he's a capable tight end. He can block a little bit. He can definitely run. He's got some speed to him, catch it, good in the screen game sort of thing. He's well-rounded. I'm not sure if he's going to be the starter or the solution for Cincinnati at tight end, but he's a downgrade from CJ Uzomah as a receiver, but probably an upgrade from him as a blocker. So he fills in from losing CJ Uzomah, which I thought was a real shocker there. Rick says the Chiefs are playing for third in the division. Nicholas says St. Peter's beats Kentucky. Wow. Leo says every team in the NFC got weaker except the Bucs. What's up, Leo? How you doing, man? What's up with Tampa? Says, who do you think would be a better fit? If you guys have any questions, by the way, don't hesitate to ask me questions. I'll definitely look at them. I'm just going through all the signings right now. Tampa says, who do you think would be a better fit for the defense? Akeem Hicks or Fletcher Cox? Oof, both. They're both awesome. I've seen some people say they don't love Akeem Hicks anymore, and I think those people are wrong. Specifically, Bucs reporters on Twitter I don't agree with. But Akeem Hicks and Fletcher Cox can still both play, and if I were to rank that position, I think they're both still like top 20 players at that position. Fletcher Cox, he's an animal. He could play in any defense. He could play in the 1960s Packers, the 1985 Bears, or the 2000 Ravens. Like, it doesn't matter. He could play 4-man front, 3-man front. He's not what he used to be. I think he used to be like the only guy that was on Aaron Donald's level. Like, that's how good Fletcher Cox was. Now he's like good, right? And he's good in all areas. He's a good power rusher. He's a good run defender. He's a guy that doesn't get enough respect because he's more so, his impact is not as felt on the stat sheet as it is just by watching the game. When you watch Fletcher Cox play, he can be a dominant player. But he's certainly not the same player. And then when you look at Akeem Hicks, he's been really good. His problem has been injuries. So that's basically what you've got to deal with there. But a team like Tampa Bay they've got enough depth on the D-line, even without signing Sue and Golston, where they wouldn't mind having Akeem Hicks for 10 games in a year. If they were able to get Akeem Hicks for 10 games, at least if he's there for the playoffs, he can be dominant in all facets. And especially with Shaq Barrett around him and Vita Vea taking some pressure off of him in the middle. I mean, those would both be great signings if they were able to pull it off. I honestly think, though, they should get after Tyrann Mathieu if they can. I think Tyrann Mathieu would be an excellent signing for them. Maybe the best signing they could get in free agency right now would be Tampa to sign Tyrann Mathieu because he can play safety, but he can also play nickel. So I think that is the real move that they should make if I'm Tampa Bay. But I haven't seen enough people for Bucs reporters and things like that talking about the need for players on the front seven, especially the D end, like edge rush and especially the edge rush. I think a lot of them are sold on Joe Tryon, which is totally cool, but I would like for them to also add some sort of veteran pass rusher for cheap, like a 1-year contract, go for the Super Bowl, like 1 year, $4 or $5 million, whatever, for a guy that like can just get to the quarterback. He doesn't really have to play the run, but like in certain situations he comes in and he makes plays. Like an older veteran, like let's just say like Justin Houston type of guy or something like that. I don't know. I just threw somebody random out there, but I would like the Bucs to potentially look at those. I know that they're tight for cap and stuff, but they've really been trying to maneuver the cap to try to loosen it up and get some players in there. So we'll see what they do moving forward. Jordan Phillips is back with the Bills. The Bills have pretty much recreated their defensive line from 2 or 3 years ago. Jordan Phillips is back and Shaq Lawson is back. Both players played for them about 2-3 years ago. And both are good players in this defense. Shaq Lawson is a solid, well-rounded edge defender. Not a great pass rusher. Probably a better run defender than he is a pass rusher. But a good athlete and a good rotation player. It can help out guys like Gregory Rousseau. And that would probably mean that they're going to move on from potentially Jerry Hughes or Mario Addison by bringing in Shaq Lawson. And then you bring in Jordan Phillips. I think this is the bigger signing of the two. Jordan Phillips might be already the best interior lineman on that team. I understand that Ed Oliver has developed a little bit, but he's still not quite where they want him to be They brought in Tim Settle, but I like that they brought in a few guys here for the interior defensive line, especially Jordan Phillips, who I believe had 1 year of 9 or 10 sacks in that defense. So McDermott and that defense, Leslie Frazier, know how to utilize Jordan Phillips to become a very good pass rusher in that system. I was confused when he signed with the Cardinals because I didn't think he fit their defense. I think he fits Buffalo much better, and I think he'll have a better role back at home. Now, Allen Robinson. That's what you guys have probably been waiting for. Allen Robinson to the Rams. So firepower for the champs. The Rams give former Bears wide receiver a 3-year, $45 million deal. That includes $30 million guaranteed per source. Rams will have money left over for potentially Odell to hope to re-sign with them. That is according to Adam Schefter. This move to me signals that they're not going to be able to re-sign Odell. If they do, I don't get it. Now, I tweeted when this move happened that I didn't understand this move because first, I thought that they were going to be able to re-sign Odell Beckham in order to get him back some point next year for their playoff run for 1 year, 2 years, or whatever, for cheaper than they got Robinson here because of the injury. I thought the injury for Odell was actually going to afford them to get him for cheap to come back and then use their money elsewhere on defense, edge, corner, whatever. But my problems really come in with the Rams when it comes to you spend this money on Allen Robinson. And we'll get to Allen Robinson, how he fits and the player. But I just feel like if they don't go and sign an edge player or a corner, you lost Darius Williams. You lost Von Miller. You've lost players already on this defense. I just don't really understand why wide receiver was the priority. And that is kind of where I'm confused about the Rams. And I'm going to make a bold statement here. I think when we look back at the Rams Super Bowl from 2021, we are going to say that that was a little bit, I don't want to call it a fluke necessarily because they were a very strong roster and team. But we're going to say that that's not the way to build a team and that they kind of got lucky. They were a bit fortunate. This is the way I'm going to look at it now. I'm predicting something from 5 years down the road. The Rams build their team in a very weird way. Not only do they push the cap, not only do they get rid of picks for players, but they just pick up players. Like they don't address needs at all. They just try to pick up players. And it's very weird. Like, Allen Robinson's a good football player. But was he needed? I don't know. I don't think so. Like, you look at this wide receiving core, right? Kupp, Woods, Allen Robinson. Do any of them have speed to burn a defense down the field? I don't think so. They're all like short, intermediate route running receivers. I think Allen Robinson gives them a little bit of size. He's basically what they had in OBJ in terms of intermediate level. He's going to be very good. He's a good route runner. He can make contested catches, all that sort of stuff. Stafford's going to be great with Allen Robinson. I think that's a good signing in terms of the fit in the offense. But was it the right signing in terms of using your resources in the best fashion? You're basically admitting here that Van Jefferson has no future in this offense. You're basically saying Van Jefferson is useless. We don't want to use him. I don't really get it. I think Van Jefferson's a better player than, your second cornerback. Darius Williams left. Von Miller left. These were good, important players for you. They're gone. I would have been better off signing a edge rusher or a corner instead of signing Allen Robinson, especially when you probably could have got OBJ back anyway. So I don't know. It's just weird. It's just weird management. It's weird decision-making to me. Maybe I'm wrong here, but that's just kind of the way that I see it. I feel like it's a good player that fits the offense and will have a role, but I don't know. I just don't know. All right, let's get back to the chat real quick. Lenny says my super chat. Where's your super chat, Lenny? Thank you, Lenny, for the $5.99. I'm going to add this to the broadcast. Lenny says, "The Raiders are destined for greatness once again. Commitment to excellence and just win, baby." Lenny, Al Davis is looking down and he is smiling. That's all I'll say about that. I actually can't wait to hear what Mike Lombardi says about that because I'm sure he's excited. Bears and Chiefs running back Damian Williams signed a 1-year contract with the Atlanta Falcons to boost their running back position. Good quality depth signing. I thought Williams looked pretty good as a backup last year for Chicago. So he's a guy that I've always liked. He can do a little bit of everything. Run. He's got very good vision as a runner. Maybe not the speed he used to have, but I thought he looked pretty good last year after missing a year because he went on the list. I'll just call it the Jericho list. And yeah, so Damian Wilson, I think, is a number 2, number 3 running back with some receiving skills, some running skills. Nice signing for 1 year for the Falcons. The Bengals have been reported to be expected to signing La'el Collins of the Cowboys, but it's not confirmed. But if it is confirmed, I will say that would be a phenomenal signing, and I would love the Bengals offseason. I think the Bengals have done a great job building their offensive line. Very low key, not a lot of big moves, but they got better at guard and they've gotten better at tackle. So that would be incredible for them if they were able to bring in Collins. The Ravens basically re-signed Michael Pierce. Michael Pierce, former Viking for about a season, is going back to the Ravens on a 3-year, $16.5 million deal. They get their big ass kicker in the middle once again, which is Michael Pierce. Big, nasty run stuffer. That's what he is. The Ravens always have those players. It's a staple of the Baltimore Ravens. He'll be back there, and he'll probably play better than he played with Minnesota. He wasn't bad for Minnesota, but he's just a Baltimore Raven. It's just as simple as that. 3-year, $16.5 million, and good luck moving him off the ball. That's all I'll say about that. Yeah, the Bengals brought back Eli Apple, which is fine. I mean, he was fine for them. I know he's a meme, but like, he was pretty good as a he'll be good as a depth corner. I probably assume that they don't want him to be a starter this year, but as a depth player, I think he's totally fine. And he also, what I do like about Eli Apple is he brings a little bit of a punch. You know, he brings an attitude, a swagger, right? He's kind of a dummy, but he brings that like mentality, right? It annoys offenses. Like, clearly he has an effect. He annoys people. Like, that is something. Like, that's typically like a hockey thing. But you got that guy that can get under people's skin. You know what I mean? Where do I think Beasley ends up? Man, I could see him going to New England, which I don't know if I want that. I could... Let me think. I just know New England loved him a couple years ago, but... Let me see. So, I mean, I could see potentially would the Giants sign him? Maybe. Because they got Brian Daboll now. Maybe. The Steelers could use a slot receiver. Cole Beasley with Trubisky. Maybe. The Browns, potentially. I wonder if the Colts would take a look at him. I would assume a team that's trying to win. The Chiefs, I actually think the Chiefs would make sense too. And even the Chargers. No, maybe not the Chargers. You got to throw the Packers in there because I think they should be interested in a lot of receivers. But yeah, those are some that come to mind. Early AFC North predictions. I'm going to go Ravens, Bengals, Browns, Steelers. In order. Belichick getting exposed. At least McDaniels is living it up, right? Patriots, they can take a year off. We'll We'll watch them in 2023, right? No, just kidding. I'm going to watch them, but it's not going to be pretty. They're going to suck this year, and then they'll be back. Don't worry. Belichick's got a plan. I'm just checking the rumors. You don't know how Mike Williams got paid so much? I mean, he's a good young football player. He's produced statistically. I don't think he's quite as good as the contract, but he is good. Who gets more wins, the Commanders or the Giants? I think you have to say right now the Commanders, but I could change my mind. I think the Giants are a good long shot bet because I think the Giants improved insanely in terms of their coaching staff. Like their coaching staff for the Giants greatly improves them. Like they're way better from the coaching perspective. So I think the Giants could be a lot better this year, but the Commanders with Wentz, they've got a solid. I like Rivera. I like their defense has got potential. Like they could win 8 games, and more than likely the Giants are going to win probably like 7, but I don't know. Like it's tough to say. Hector says, as a Raider fan, you're a great Pats fan. Appreciate the content and honest opinions. Thank you. Now, the AFC West, don't even ask me to predict that order. I have no idea. I will say this. The Chiefs are in trouble, okay? The Chiefs are in trouble. Like, I don't think people realize this. You could make an argument. Maybe I'm crazy. Whatever. Call me crazy. You could make an argument the Chiefs have the worst roster in the AFC West. You could make that argument. I'm not ready to crown the Raiders or anything like this. I still put the Chargers ahead of them for sure. But I think you could argue that the Raiders, the Chiefs, and the Broncos, roster-wise, right? I'm not talking about team. Maybe that's a little bit different. But the Raiders, they got to improve their offensive line. I think they've got to improve their interior defensive line, maybe add another piece there, and their secondary could still use a little bit of improvement. But overall, the Raiders' offense is going to be one of the best. Defense, they got 2 incredible pass rushers. They've got, I think, an underrated cornerback group there, and I think they've improved their coaching staff from where they were in the playoffs this past season. So I look at the Raiders as a team that can make the playoffs. I think the Broncos are tough to eliminate from the playoff group because they got Russell Wilson, who's like an automatic 9 wins. But I'm not sure the Broncos roster is as good as people think. And then, like, the Chiefs got holes. Like, I like their O-line. I like Mahomes. I like Kelsey. I like Hill. Everything else, I have questions about. I have questions about their secondary. I have questions about their linebacking core. I have questions about their D-line. I have questions about their second and third receiver. Like, I don't know. The Chiefs just, I don't even think they're really in my mind as like a team that could win the Super Bowl, which is really weird. Like, I think right now, the way that I look at it is the AFC, I think the Bengals have gotten better. I think the Raiders have gotten better. I think the Chargers have gotten better. I think the Broncos have gotten better. I think the Bills have gotten better. And the Bills were already the favorite. So, like, I don't know. Steeler Nation says the Chiefs are not a threat. I put Pats, Bills, Browns, Bengals, Chargers. You put the Pats? Well, the Pats suck. Don't put the Pats ahead of them. Don't put that on us. We suck. Now, I agree with the Bills. I agree with the Bengals. I agree with the Chargers. I don't agree with the Browns unless they get a quarterback. If they get a quarterback, then maybe. Yeah. Ladarius says he hopes the Raiders get Honey Badger. That could happen. I could see Logan Ryan potentially. I know that he was released by the Giants. Logan Ryan would make a lot of sense. I could see him going to Atlanta as well. Leo says, what do you think about Brady recruiting Julio? That's cool. It's cool. I think if I'm a Bucs fan, I would like Julio if he came on a manageable contract for a year. And yeah, just a luxury item. But I wouldn't want him on my team if I was counting on him as my number one receiver. I think it's cool, though. I think it's exciting. Brady's done a good job as a GM this offseason. What do you think the Pats should do in the draft? Probably first round defense, second round wide receiver. So first round corner or some sort of impact defensive player. And then second round wide receiver. And then for the rest of the draft, just pick the best player. They definitely need to look at guard. They need to look at probably wide receiver multiple times. Linebacker, certainly. So that's what I see. Winris says, who's your top 3 Super Bowl contenders as of today? The Bills, the Bucks, and the Chargers, I think. Yeah, it's going to be tough. The Chargers are going to be... the Chiefs are always going to be relevant. I just don't know if I'd quite put them in that contender category, though. Kevin says, oh yeah, Matthew will want to play for a winning team, not my Patriots. Yikes. Lenny says, AFC West order, the Chargers, the Raiders, the Chiefs, and the Broncos. I'm surprised Lenny didn't put the Raiders first. The Raiders. I do agree. I think that the Broncos are last. Thoughts on Miles Jack to Pittsburgh? Talked about that yesterday, Steeler Nation. If you want to check out that live stream, I talked about it in detail. But it's a solid move. I think he has upside in that defense with Brian Flores as that coach now. Could definitely help him. I am a little bit curious as to why Pittsburgh continues to spend and use assets to fix their linebacker position. First round pick on Devin Bush, traded for Joe Schobert, end up cutting Joe Schobert. Is Miles Jack going to be the next guy in that line where they spend some money on Miles Jack and then they end up cutting him in a year? I don't know. I think he's a good football player. He's been inconsistent, though, so they got to find his consistency. Ben says 4 straight AFC championships at Arrowhead and everyone's still sleeping on Kansas City. Your time has passed, sir. I'm just kidding. But yeah, that's not going to last forever. Where is Jimmy G going? If I had to guess, it's the Colts or the Browns. It's got to be the Colts or the Browns. Worst team next season is the Panthers, says Joe. They're up there. They're pretty bad. Who else is bad? The Texans are pretty darn bad, too. I don't know if I'd discount the Texans. New England is clam chowder. They're worse than that. Steeler Nation says, bro, Rodgers got absolutely way too much. Lenny says, Mitch, I'm scared Mad Max isn't going to be great as a 3-tech. I don't think he fits that skill set at all. We'll see. I'm sure they'll try to do whatever he does best. I don't think they're going to try to force him into a square peg in a round hole sort of situation. I don't think they're going to force him to play a certain way just because that's how they play. they can make exceptions for that. I think they're a smart enough coaching staff to be able to do that if it's so, like, necessary that way. Kevin says, Honey Badger to the Raiders. It's possible. I wouldn't discount it. Winrith says, do you think the Pats will trade away their first round pick? No. I maybe trade back. I could see them trading back, but I can't see them trading for trading up or trading it away. I saw a report that Fletcher Cox is likely returning to the Eagles on a 1-year deal. I don't know how that makes any sense. I guess they're trying to like reformulate his contract. Leo says it's amazing the Bucs were looking like an awful team and Brady comes back and completely flips the entire NFC. Yeah, you're right. Brokey says he just realized Deshaun Watson and Kyle Pitts share the same agent. Ooh. All right, guys. I think I'm done, though. Appreciate everybody joining me here live, and I went over a ton of stuff, so hopefully everybody got their answers. If you enjoyed, make sure that you do. Gronk, spike that like button. We will be back tomorrow at some point. Check out all the content. If you haven't already, please follow the new TikTok. I put that link at the top of the live chat, so click on it and give me a follow. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Mitch Milani, Milani. You can follow all our social medias and stuff. The links are all in the description, from Instagram to Twitter to TikTok and more. So check that out. Appreciate everybody, and we will see you tomorrow. Peace.